This video is brought to you in part by Squarespace.
Welcome back to Mecha... you know what, whatever, I just love talking about Sonic robots. And as we have learned, Eggman has made a lot of bots designed to copy Sonic and his furry friends. But long before Sonic, Robotnik, or anyone else from that colorful cast, there existed a robot who was a far greater imitator than anything Eggy ever concocted. This is a Gizoid, a particular contraption that existed thousands of years in the past, one that would greatly affect the lives of Sonic and company for generations. And strangely enough, his story has only ever been properly told in a spin-off game trapped on the Game Boy Advance. There have been expanded bits and pieces here and there in tales not considered canon to the mainline games, but now it looks like we may have his tale properly expanded in some upcoming media. We will of course cover all of that as it drops, but for now, let's take a look back at what we know about this strange little guy. This is the mystery and tragedy of Emerl, or ML. I'll get back to that later. Now, if you are familiar with this channel and my obsession with Sonic robots, you know I focus on the robots that are actually shaped like Sonic and his friends. And when you look at this half-peeled tangerine, clearly he's bucking that trend. But like I said up front, this particular robot might actually be a better copy than even Metal Sonic, or all of the other metals combined. That even includes that X-Robot we talked about a couple of years ago. Check out that video if you haven't yet, because Tracy Yardley, who designed this guy, originally was going to do more Gizoid-focused designs for the X-Bot. And for good reason, because the little time we've had with Golden Boy here left quite the impact. Emerl took center stage in only one game, Sonic Battle, continuing the proud tradition of Sonic spin-off games having a surprising amount of lore baked into their story mode, and also having psychotic AI in the single-player portion, but that's for another video. At first, I considered Emerl to be a simple blank slate character, a generic canvas for the player to paint a personality onto and pretend that they are running around with Sonic and pals. But this chibi Kamen Rider looking guy actually ties into the history they had been really building up around this time in the franchise, and he had a lot of surprises hiding behind those bug eyes, that closed one especially, and all of those layers would be explored in each new chapter of Sonic Battle. When you start the story mode, they open up with Eggman throwing the bot out, giving the impression that this is another one of his creations that just failed. Frustrated that the robot is holding on to one of his emeralds but not letting it go, kind of like when my original PlayStation 3 just ate up a copy of Folklore and I still haven't managed to get it out yet. I still have that sitting in a storage container somewhere. I wonder if it's like a god now or something. Anyway, this discarded bot would later be discovered on Emerald Beach by Sonic the Hedgehog, where a link would be established. A link is something that this little robot does with a single person, designating them as its master, completely loyal to Sonic or anyone that Sonic commands Emerl to obey. And speaking of the name Emerl, that name was given to the robot by Sonic, named after Chaos Emeralds, something this robot can use not only to power up but also mature. See, Emerl starts off barely able to string words together, but as he obtains more emeralds, his functions evolve. He learns speech as a human child would, starting off talking like a baby and mimicking phrases to adopting a personality all his own. And that's not the only thing he does. Emerl is also able to copy the abilities of fighters he observes or fights against. And he does that with just about everybody. Just like the adventure games, each chapter focuses on a singular character, with Emerl being the through line, and learning particular skills with each new character he follows around. We even get a better Knuckles training arc than compared to what we got on the Knuckles show. But to be fair, Wade Whipple didn't beat me senseless because this game is so damn hard. Unlike other self-insert characters, we actually got to see Emerl become, well, Emerl, taking on some traits of whatever character he's palling around with. His greatest bond is with Sonic, so the first bits of personality he shows are bits of sass that he parrots from the blue guy. Same with the moveset. It's rudimentary at first, but obviously inspired by Sonic's skill set, incorporating the iconic spin attack amongst other moves. Emerl also learns the art of evasion with the help of Rouge, a few manners thanks to Amy, a bit of aggression from Knuckles, who also arguably helps the robot set up in power more than anyone else, at least that's how it felt to me because that chapter was brutal. And as this robot is passed from one character to another, his power and fighting prowess increases. But like I said, a personality personality begins to form as he mingles with all of these colorful characters. But that's not all that's going on with the robot. It doesn't take us much time to learn that things aren't what they seem with this little guy. Tails and Rouge have a heck of a time accessing Emerl's database. Even with the most powerful computers at their disposal, they just can't keep up with this robot. But we do learn fairly early on that this robot is not an Eggman creation, but the Gizoid did interact with Eggman's infamous grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. But the game doesn't give us the full story right away, only giving out bits and pieces of this mystery. Turns out Eggman threw this robot out because it just didn't respond to any of his commands, but after observing the evolution it goes through as it absorbs emeralds and hangs out with Sonic, the Doctor, of course, regains his interest in the Gizoid. So, using the data he did manage to collect from Emerl, Eggman quickly creates clones of the robot, known as E1215. Or is it Phi? Hang on, I'm gonna check. Okay, yeah, no, I was right. It's Phi. Sorry, I had to double check. I always get in trouble for mispronouncing things. I mean, just showing you just how out of touch I am with music. I kept saying Kid Cudi's name as Kid Cudi. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I just assumed it'd be Cudi. I know it sounds like Cootie, but the other one sounds like Cud. Do you know what Cud is? It's gross. Just a cow chewing on its own vomit. It's disgusting. What was I talking about? The Phi are powered by shards of a broken Chaos Emerald. These, of course, don't really stand much of a chance against the OG Emerl, but these clones do allude to another creation Eggman would concoct down the road. Also gotta admit, it's pretty impressive that Eggman managed to copy such a complex creation so quickly. Yes, it's mostly an excuse to just fluff out the relentless cannon fodder of the game, but we're not here to review that title just yet. Still an interesting tidbit because I think this might be the first time we learned that Chaos Emeralds can be busted. But hey, the Big Daddy Emerald has already broken twice at this point, so not that surprising. Anyway, for the first half of the game, Emerald acts very childlike, even calling Amy Mom a lot. She treats Emerald as a crash test baby to prepare for parenthood with Sonic. And man, the out of context screenshots you get from this is just fantastic. I forgot who pointed that out to me on Twitter, but thank you, because yeah, they're amazing. Hope this was a real weird time for whoever localized this game. But yeah, Emerald is very much a baby boy right up until his 4th Chaos Emerald. And with the start of Cream's chapter, the roles are reversed, treating the little rabbit like the child she is and acting as a guardian to her, keeping her safe and drying up her tears when she is upset, showing us that Emerald not only has mimicked the fighting moves of Sonic and his friends, but also their compassion and heroism. It's hard not to like the little robot. He's all the best traits of all these characters that we already love, but this also does show us another incredible ability of the robot. After a fight with a Gamma clone, he shows Cream that he can heal. This robot doesn't need repairs from any outside help. He heals like a real living creature, and quickly too, right before Cream's eyes. And then he proceeds to punch the bunny right in the face. Yes, it's just training. This is a fighting game. They need to make every excuse under the sun to have these matchups, but it does play into the personality of the robot. This has been the most consistent quirk of that personality. Even when he could barely speak, it was clear this robot loves to fight. Now, there's not much else that actually happens in terms of the plot when it comes to Cream's chapter, at least when it comes to advancing Emerald's story, but this is still important to note because this dynamic between Cream and the Gizoid would be a central relationship where this little rabbit and other adaptations of this story, and with another robot we will have to talk about another time. For now, back to Sonic Battle. So through most of the game, they've laid it on pretty thick that there's more going on with this Gizoid than anyone actually realizes, at least anyone not named Rouge or Eggman. And to anyone familiar with the character or this era of the games, it should come as no surprise to learn that the plot really kicks off when we get to Shadow's chapter, where Shadow learns that the Gizoid is a legendary weapon, as Rouge describes it anyway. A weapon like Shadow, except the Gizoid is 4,000 years his senior. This robot was discovered by Shadow's creator and Eggman's grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. Shadow is then knocked out for a good chunk of the plot because of a lucky shot by a clone Gamma bot, which explains why he isn't trying to constantly destroy Emerald through the rest of the game's story. So yeah, sorry Shadow. Now, something I gotta admit to you guys, I don't know if it's a localization problem or me just not digesting the information properly, but I had a little bit of a challenge telling whether or not Shadow recalls the Gizoid or if he's just acting off the obtained information in the present day of the game. That wasn't exactly clear to me. We do start Shadow's story with voices in his head and hints of memory, so I don't know if that's memories of Maria or her spirit. I'm leaning towards memory because I also also clearly show a line from Sonic Heroes when Rouge first discovers him. I don't know. Point is, there is a voice in his head telling him not to let a tragedy of some sort repeat itself. And either way, it is Maria herself that actually ties Emerl and Shadow together. Because while Gerald was not the original creator of the Gizoid, he was still able to tinker with the bot a bit, incorporating the soul of Maria into both Shadow and the Gizoid. Now, he didn't just take an ethereal energy out of his granddaughter and stuff it into a furry and a robot. What he actually did was incorporate free will into both of them, and that was inspired by Maria, if that makes sense. Throughout the different chapters of Sonic Battle, we have seen a growth in Emerl, but here we also see a change in Shadow. Now, there is a bit of debate among fans about where this game might take place in the franchise's timeline, as there are things here and there, specifically with Shadow, that call it into question. But just going by when this game was originally released, that being after Sonic Heroes and before Shadow's own game, simply going by release date, this is still in that brief bit of time where Shadow is still trying to figure himself out after waking up with amnesia. Remember, fans who played this back in 2004 literally were unable to play Shadow's game for all that extra lore that particular game provided. So I'm operating under that logic. And with that considered, and with Shadow watching Emerald grow and sharing a bit of a Martha moment with him, wow, making that joke just now just made me realize how close the name Maria is to Martha. Anyway, after attempting to take the Gizoid down a few times, Shadow ends up having a debate with Sonic, discussing the very nature of the Gizoid, the purpose of his creation, and it's obvious that there's a clear parallel between Emerl and Shadow. He is scared of his own power, scared of his purpose, believing he, like the Gizoid, was only built to be a weapon. But Sonic reminds Shadow that he doesn't have to be only one thing. He does have a choice to be more. And he even sends Emerl off with Shadow to discover more about himself. The two would run into Rouge, come across the notes from Gerald, and we discover quite a few things. We learn about this connection with Maria, and really, in a lot of ways, Emerl is a long-lost brother to Shadow. Still, there are signs of danger present, and the game does give you this bittersweet sense of things to come. See, this whole time, Emerl has been collecting busted pieces of Chaos Emeralds, reforming them and absorbing them, building up his power and maturing him in the process, until he has all but one emerald left to obtain, the one held by Shadow. It's in Shadow's story where, instead of trying to hunt down the little robot, Emerl actually tracks Shadow down all by himself as he's in that debate with Sonic, coldly demanding the last emerald before snapping back to his regular old cheerful self. This all but cemented Shadow's fears. See, earlier on, Shadow himself warned the others to avoid giving Emerl the emeralds, because who knows what he's capable of once he collects all 7. And it's clear in this moment on the beach that some of that old dangerous battle program still resides within the Gizoid. So it's understandable for Shadow to want to take this particular robot out, especially knowing what he knows thanks to his creator, Gerald Robotnik. See, another little thing I failed to mention up to this point, if you beat a character's story a second time through, you can unlock a portion of Gerald's journal entries pertaining to his discovery and research of the Gizoid. It's here where we learn some interesting bits of backstory. First off, Gerald just found this little guy in a warehouse. So yeah, I have no idea where this robot originally came from, but Gerald did also discover a stone tablet detailing some concerning things about the Gizoid. According to Gerald, this robot might be the cause for the destruction of the 4th great civilization. Now, I apologize because I know I'm like 3 layers deep into my tangents, but a quick note here, this might be a bit of a localization error because the English version of the game specifically describes this as the 4th great civilization, but the original Japanese text calls it one of the 4 civilization. This, as other fans have pointed out, probably is referring to one of the cradle of civilization theories, which posits that our civilizations, as we know them, originated in 4 major regions. It's likely that's what this is pertaining to, but Sonic Chronicles took things a step further, saying the 4th great civilization was actually the Nocturnus clan, and Emerl was the most powerful of the Gizoids that they created. But since that's not considered canon to the main game timeline, it's likely this particular origin will be changed, but I'll talk a little bit more about that a bit later. What's important for right now is that no matter how it shakes out, Emerl took out a lot of people in the past, and was also a menace on the Ark itself, as once the government forced Gerald to hand over the Gizoid, some scientists who weren't as careful as the good doctor was accidentally sent this robot on a rampage all over the space colony Ark. It did eventually get contained and ended up stored somewhere until Eggman tracked it down, but the robot proved to be a danger in the distant past and during the era of Project Shadow. In fact, going by these journals, it sounds like shutting down Project Shadow might have been a direct response to the Gizoid's rampage. So Emerl here might have unintentionally been indirectly responsible for the death of Maria. They don't really get into that much detail in the game itself, but that is pretty clearly implied in the journals. But anyway, Gerald did manage to get a lot of information and got a lot of tinkering done with the Gizoid before they parted ways. The doctor quickly discovered this robot had more data than any of his tech could handle. Same problem Tails ran into. But he also learned that this robot not only mimics fighting techniques, but can absorb weapons. It has a limit to how many powers it can pull out at once, at least when it's not at full power. But even without all the emeralds, the Gizoid is accumulating a whole lot of data, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of limit to it. And unfortunately, this is so advanced that Gerald wasn't able to completely remove the programming that compels the Gizoid to demolish everything. So instead, Gerald attempted to reroute those programs and put all that energy to good use, giving Emerl the ability to have his own free will, make his own choices, even managing to install a failsafe command that would allow Emerl to regain control if he were to ever obtain all the Chaos Emeralds and achieve this ultimate form. And if all else fails, there is a self-destruct in the code if things go completely out of hand. But that was only a last resort, and that was a very sweet moment between Rouge and Shadow, because apparently Shadow might have a self-destruct in him as well. But as Rouge points out, Shadow doesn't use his power selfishly. And Gerald understood the potential danger of the Gizoid, but it's still clear he respected the technical marvel that it was. And unlike his grandson, who only saw Emerald as a means to conquer the world, Gerald saw technology so advanced he knew it was capable of taking on a life and personality all its own. No, he couldn't get rid of the dangerous weapons, but he could at least give Emerald the choice to pull the trigger. And he did the same for Shadow. As Rouge explains to both of them, Gerald was never interested in creating weapons of war. He wanted to benefit mankind with his creation, but the government wasn't going to allow that. So if he was going to create weapons, he would at least do his best to impart the most important thing onto them: humanity. That's what he did with Shadow. And while he didn't create Emerald, the Doctor still did his damnedest to give him a heart. With all of that information now known to Shadow, and having seen all the connections the robot has made with Sonic and the others, while reflecting on his own life, it's pretty clear that Emerald has decided to go down a righteous path. But he won't be completely free of that initial programming without a trigger phrase programmed in by Gerald. And that can't be properly activated until Emerald has collected all of the Chaos Emeralds, which would give him the potential to unlock his ultimate form, and that is a huge risk to take. Yes, they could give Emerald the chance to be his own complete person, but it's also giving him the capability to completely destroy the world if he so chooses. But Shadow has already gone down this journey, and armed with all of this knowledge, even knowing the potential of the Gizoid, Shadow hands over the final Chaos Emerald to Emerl, and it's such a cool moment. You can tell that he does believe in Emerald, but Shadow is ready to throw down if need be. It's awesome. And once the final emerald is absorbed, Shadow shouts out the command phrase, which are the final words of Maria Robotnik: "Bring hope to humanity." And nothing happens. Well, okay, that little third eye on his head opens up, but outside of that, yeah, the command phrase works, allowing Gerald's program to complete, giving Emerald a life all his own. But with all of that finally settled, settled, Shadow still wants a fight, not with the intention of destroying Emerl, but simply out of curiosity. He wants to see how these two match up. The story started off with Shadow seeing Emerl as a threat, but here, even the Black Hedgehog has been won over, sparring against his stepbrother Robot. After their little tussle, even though things seem to be all good, the game gives this looming tone, like something's not quite right. And Shadow tells Emerl to track down and face off against all of his other friends before challenging him to a rematch. And yeah, I mean, everything is pleasant, but there's a sense of finality to all of this. All of the fake Gizoids are gone, and as Emerl tackles each of the cast members, they comment on how much Emerl has grown and how there's nothing left for them to teach the robot. And when Emerl returns to Shadow, the Gizoid has to take on not only him, but Sonic as well. And the robot ends up victorious, showing just how capable the Gizoid is now that he's apparently tapped into his full potential. Shadow's story ends on a surprisingly sweet note, not something you'd expect from this particular hedgehog. And that should be that. At this point, you have completed every story for the core game cast, but one more story unlocks. No, it's not for Supersonic or anything like that. This one is for Emerl himself. In this final chapter, Eggman has completed his Death Egg. Yeah, that makes a return. There's a surprising amount happening in this game, and the cast agrees to let Emerl be the one to head up to face the Doctor. Tails has this teleporter thing with limited charges, something like that. Point is, they can only send up one person at a time, so the robot gets to go, and finally get the chance to confront and defeat the man who started him down this path. And Emerl thanks him for it. Without Eggman awakening the Gizoid, he never would have found his sense of self and make all of these friends. But Eggman had another trick up his sleeve. See, the entire game, he's been plotting, putting together an incredibly powerful weapon for his space station, with the intention of setting it off in front of Emerl. Yeah, there was another very important thing I have skipped over until this point. Something you might have skipped yourself, even if you had unlocked all of Gerald's notes up to this point, and that is the nature of the Gizoid's link. As I said up front, the Gizoid is programmed to make a link with a master, once that master has proven their power. But if there is another that displays an overwhelming power that surpasses what was previously witnessed, the Gizoid will break the link with its current master and establish a new link with a more powerful master. And that was Eggman's plan once he learned Emerald was up and running, allowing Sonic and friends to collect the Emerald so Eggy could get this ultimate ancient weapon right here to witness the final Egg Blaster destroy a cluster of stars, which is an insane amount of power if you know how big stars are. Well, the idea worked a little too well. The power was just too much, causing Emerl to completely snap, overloading and going into that ultimate state, more powerful than the robot had ever been before, completely reverting to its original violent intention, shoving Eggman aside and turning the blaster towards Earth. Without any other course of action to take, Tails teleports Sonic up to the Death Egg to take on Emerl, recreating the tragedy on the Ark all those years ago. And despite the help of all 7 Chaos Emeralds, all the abilities absorbed not just by the cast, but by generations of learned combat and weaponry, Sonic pulls through in this intense battle, taking down Emerl. The hope was that once enough damage was caused, they could snap their friend out of this violent state. But as you can imagine, in a fight so intense, the damage was just too great, and Gerald's final bit of programming has kicked in. Despite this being just a few sprites spitting dialogue back and forth, the death of Emerl is a fairly powerful one when it comes to the Sonic franchise. And I think, ironically enough, it's those final moments that really show us just how alive Emerl was. He's confused, afraid, he can feel pain, he sputters broken sentences, he asks, "Am I going to die?" And even after accepting his fate, even after thanking Sonic and having the chance to see everyone one last time, he says he doesn't want to go. Emerl didn't come up here with the intention of dying. He wasn't trying to do some noble sacrifice or anything like that. He just lost control and he paid the price. And now he lays dying. It really wouldn't be that far off from Tails dying in Sonic's arm. And speaking of, Emerl mentions all of his friends one by one, asking if Tails had gotten any stronger and telling Sonic not to tease Knuckles too much for being gullible because he is a nice guy after all. And while it's easy to joke about how weird it is to use paternal terms through this entire game, when he mentions Amy, he once again calls her mom. And I gotta tell you, I stopped laughing at that point. He is trying to be brave, but again, he doesn't want to go. But this is goodbye. And it was. Emerl doesn't break down, shut down, go into hibernation. None of these easy outs you can give a robot. He died, and he does not come back. They don't give us an after credits fake out. They don't go on a quest to rebuild him. Any excuse they could use because, hey, it is a robot after all, you can get away with doing whatever you want. They didn't do that. They treated him like a real living being. This isn't a broken toy. This is a death of a loved one. And I gotta tell you, I feel kinda silly not having beaten this game until now. It just frustrated me way too much back in the day. But in terms of Emerald's story, there's a lot here that provides so much context for future adaptations. And retroactively, it makes me respect the IDW Sonic series that much more. If you've watched my speed readings, I do point out how often Sonic treats robots like living, breathing creatures. I did logic it away with comparisons to other characters, but here, with the passing of Emerl, it really hits this point home. Also helps that we get a clone of another Sonic robot that made a lot of fans cry, but we will have to wait for another video before we talk about the bird and the bot. But Emerl, while not mentioned a whole lot going forward outside of the occasional reference or Mii costume, did mark a change in how these characters interact with robots going forward, outside of Amy, of course. But again, we will talk about all that another time. After playing through this game, I can better understand a Sonic that would reason with Shadow about Mr. Tinker. They have almost the exact same kind of debate here in this game. And I can understand why Sonic would try to give Metal Sonic of all robots a chance to be his own person. And this certainly informed how the cast would interact with Gerald in Sonic Advance 3, who went down almost the exact same path as his predecessor, but managed to be saved and redeemed by the end of it all. Because you better believe Sonic would not allow this to happen a second time. I said it up front, and I've said it in other videos, I'm not a fan of self-insert characters, obvious avatars for the players to fanfic their way through. Sonic Forces did just that, and it's not for me. And Emerl is very much that in concept. It's a blank slate robot that you can customize as you see fit. Put some fun colors on him, maybe trade around some moves with friends, and they slot him into a story that he could easily be yeeted out of by the end of it. And they do just that. But man, Sonic Battle showed me the right way to do a customizable character mixed into your narrative. They really went above and beyond to give a backstory and personality to this guy, justifying the customizable abilities and the blank slate nature and weaving it into the narrative and even adding it to the sacred lore that is Shadow the Hedgehog. Hell, the game sees the return of Gamma, Chaos, the Death Egg, the Master Emerald, which breaks again. Oh my god. It establishes that the Chaos Emeralds can be broken. It's just wild how much is going on here, and it all revolves around Emerl. I'll do a more thorough dive into the pacing of Sonic Battle's story in a more dedicated video about the game itself, but I'm probably not alone in thinking it's a shame that we did not get some of these more powerful moments expressed through a CG cutscene or something more grand than this. I mean, the sprites don't even play out any of these scenes. It's the same static character art with dialogue boxes, but those limitations force the dialogue to really carry this story. It's not the deepest thing in the world, and there are more than a couple of hiccups I noticed in the localization, but overall the story really goes way beyond what I would expect from a game like this, and for a character like this. I do really think that Emerald's story ended the best way it could have. It wasn't a twist I was expecting. It takes a lot of courage to kill off what was essentially the main character of the game. And you know what? but it was even more courageous not to give Sonic the entire focus through this entire game. Sure, his name is on the box, and in the end, he was the one who had to save the day, but make no mistake, this was Emerl's tale through and through, and I would argue that this was one of Sonic's most badass moments as a character. Difficulty spikes and janky AI aside, having the Hedgehog go up against a robot he sees as a friend. Hell, a robot he helped raise, a robot who proved that he could take Sonic down, and now has the power of all 7 Chaos Emeralds and thousands of years of combat data behind every attack, all while trying to stop a Death Egg that's about to blow up the world. Which, by the way, is the first time that stupid thing has ever actually been told to do anything threatening in any of these games. Yeah, I love S3K, but we don't actually know what the Death Egg does. But anyway, yeah, this ranks as one of the coolest final fights in any Sonic game. It's heartbreaking, it's badass, it's powerful, and it was nice to see Sonic have to prove his worth as a hero, fighting against the very power that usually helps him skirt out a win at the end of almost every other finale. But that only could have worked as well as it did because of how well they intertwined this simple, cute robot into Sonic's story. Emerl is the perfect balance between a player-created character and an important cast member in his own right. It really reminds me of Commander Shepard in that way. Hey, maybe BioWare should make a Sonic. Oh, right. Still, like I said, it would have been cool to see this story played out in a properly animated cutscene or something like that. And apparently, Sega thought so too. Kinda, because we would see a massively truncated version of Emerl's story in Sonic X. Oh, sorry, I mean ML. 4Kids goofed that up somehow, and throughout the entire English dub, they call him ML, which was very distracting. I'm gonna keep it very, very brief here. Emerl shows up, randomly waking up thanks to Bokun in a warehouse, but to be fair, the game itself was pretty vague on where Eggman actually found this guy. They tease the dangerous nature of the robot having to power a tank to take on Sonic, only to escape and be taken in by Cream and Vanilla, and from there, ML just kinda hangs around, showing signs of his potential when he randomly copies Sonic, but things don't come to a head until the 2-episode adaptation of Sonic Battle, which is, it's just a parody tournament arc for the most part, until it gets very serious at the end, where he wins the tournament, absorbs the red Chaos Emerald, and snaps, only to be taken down by Cream and Cheese, which, hey, is a pretty hardcore moment for the little rabbit, but it also feels a little insane that Sonic is just letting this child basically put down her own dog. And shout out to Stevie, she watched this with me and said that Cream old yellered Emerl. If there was any sadness I was going to feel in this moment, it was drowned out by my own laughter. Also, yes, Emerl drowns, letting out an oil tear, which was edited out in the 4Kids dub, probably because oil spills are a bad thing. I don't know. This sucks. It's a great moment for Cream, sure, but it's not earned. I did not like any of these episodes outside of a random laugh here or there, and I do love this clip of Sonic telling Chris not to be a dick again. It's great out of context. I really don't know how this hasn't been memed by the community.
Then don't do it again.
I know, I'm being very dismissive. I will give Sonic X its fair shake eventually. I have not sat down through the entire series, but really, Sonic Battle is more of a shonen adventure than X ever was. I know Sonic is often associated with shonen, but like, he doesn't grow or change ever, but Emerl did. Hell, the entire game revolved around fights and growing stronger. Now, if that was adapted into an anime with Emerl as the main character, that would have been sick as hell. You can't tell me you wanted the Sonic X tournament over something like that. I know X is doing its own different thing, a worse thing, but a different thing. But after Battle, this left me wanting. I can't imagine how fans who actually finished the game back then must have felt. And I certainly can't imagine how insanely hyped they were to see that familiar oval head and piercing teal eyes appear in the teaser for the Dark Beginnings animation. We only got a brief glimpse, but man, even if Emerl is only here for a brief battle, hopefully that's not the case, but even this tease is so much more of what I wanted for this character. And who knows, maybe they'll even answer some questions in these episodes. Now, this portion of the video might age like milk, but while we still have a little bit of time before Dark Beginnings drops, this could be an opportunity for us to finally learn a little bit more about the backstory of Emerl, now that we know that Sonic Chronicles is not considered part of the mainline game canon. That's not to say that the story of Sonic Chronicles should be flat out dismissed. You know how I appreciate all the different canons of Sonic, and we will will explore that thoroughly another time. I just don't want to play through that game again right now, guys. I'm sorry. I don't have the time, I don't have the patience, and I don't have fond memories of that game. I'll have to do it for more Ken Penders crap anyway. Just, your boy can only do so much at once. So if you are a fan of that particular backstory for Emerl, I am truly sorry Sega told you it doesn't matter. We are adult Sonic fans. You will feel that disappointment at some point in your life if you haven't already. But with one canon erased, that does give us an opportunity for a new story. I haven't done any kind of digging, but I can't imagine I'm the only one speculating that there has to be some sort of connection between the Gizoid and the ancients introduced in Sonic Frontiers. The Gizoid does harness Chaos Emerald energy, which the ancients built their entire civilizations around, and all of them share those buggy eyes. So yeah, on a surface level, there are some easy connections to make. Now, why the ancients would create an ultimate weapon, that I don't know. Again, they might not touch on that at all. Dark Beginnings is about Shadow's story, not Emerald's. But I'd imagine that Gerald's notebook that's been teased for the pre-order for the release of Sonic X Shadow Generations will at least clarify some points we saw from his diary in Sonic Battle. I'm sure there's going to be a retcon here or there, as fans already feel that Shadow finding Emerald contradicts things we have learned in Sonic Battle, but Shadow's memory was sketchy and the localization wasn't exactly perfect. Both Shadow and Emerald were on a journey of self-discovery around this time in the franchise, certainly in Battle. You can very easily explain things away with amnesia because I still believe Battle takes place before Shadow's game. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit carried away with the theorizing here, but Emerald's presence alone tells us we are probably going to finally see just how important this little robot was to the story of Shadow. Heck, we might even get Emerl as that mystery playable character they've been teasing for Sonic X Shadow Generations. I don't know. I still want classic Shadow, even if it's just to piss off people. A little mini Shadow is adorable, and I'd love to see how that retcon Shadow into being just a little guy at some point in his life on the arc. Who knows, maybe Shadow is based off a scrunchier black hedgehog that Gerald met down on the planet. I don't know. You could do fun crap like that. I'm getting away from the point of the video. I'm so sorry. We will get there when we get there, and regardless of what Dark Beginnings shows us, it doesn't change how important Emerald was with what we already got. This robot encompasses so much of what adventure fans wanted. Did you feel that Shadow's story was better if he had just stayed dead? Well, they give you that tragedy here. You wanted Shonen Sonic? Well, this is the closest they ever got with that particular idea. I personally am glad I did this video because it got me to finally beat Sonic Battle, and I really appreciate everything the story of this game was doing. And I came away far more impressed with this robot than I ever expected. At this point, I do think they would cheapen the story of Emerald if they ever did resurrect him. I don't want him to come back, but I would love to see his journey to Sonic Battle. And I would love if they revisited Sonic Battle in some form, because there is a lot here, and you know what, I just need to make a video about that game soon. There is so much more to say. But for now, that is everything I have to say about Emerl. Except for the color, is he more of an orange or a yellow, or... I'm just kidding, he's obviously a deep yellow with some orange accents here and there. Tails is orange.
Before we wrap up for today, I want to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Jumping online and building up your own brand was always an intimidating thing for me, but Squarespace makes that a streamlined, fast, and easy process, all while making you look good thanks to their Fluid Engine, a next-generation website design tool that lets you tweak any of their many templates with easy-to-use drag-and-drop tools. And I don't need to tell you how useful websites can be, whether you want to build up a portfolio of your work, an art gallery, or a shop, because yes, they have everything you need to run your own online business, including analytics that help show you the strongest avenues of growth and help you build up marketing strategies, which include integration with your favorite social media networks. And they can even help you set up an online shop to sell and distribute custom merch. All you have to do is design it and they'll handle production, inventory, and shipping. Really doesn't get any easier than that. And to make it just a bit easier, if you use my link, squarespace.com/gameapologist, you'll get 14 days for free, which is plenty of time to see if this is right for you. And when you want to make a purchase, that same link will get you 10% off your first order. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring the video.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoy videos like this and this is your first time here, well, bud, tell you what, I got a whole lot of crap just like this. Go peruse. Go have a good time. If you could give a like or subscribe, I'd appreciate it. I try to say subscribe a little bit differently. I thought it'd be cute. Maybe that would convince you. Maybe you're like, oh, that little rascal. Oh, there you go. I'll hit that button for you. Gosh, I'm a YouTuber. We gotta try everything we can. I'm sorry. Anyway, if you made it to the end of the video, you've already done me a massive, massive favor. Thank you so much. Even if you didn't agree with things I said, you want to pick a fight in the comments or something like that, I can be a bit combative sometimes, but man, I do appreciate other passionate Sonic fans, so go off, you crazy kids. If you do want to help support me as a creator even further, if you got a buck to spare, I do have a Patreon. I am considering a YouTube membership. I would like to kind of buckle down and really kind of expand on things I can provide for you guys before I expand on means for taking money from people. So if you have any suggestions, I would love to hear them. As it is right now, I do provide early videos whenever possible. I give audio versions of these essays before I get to editing them, so if you don't care about background music or visuals, you get that stuff super, super early. And hey, you do get access to my Discord server. I am kind of clearing that up, reforming that a bit, really keeping it a nice, personal, fun space. I mean, if people are going to pay for it, I want it to be a place you enjoy hanging out. So we are sprucing that up, and it is a fun time. So if you want to come hang out with me or some other patrons, that's the place to do it. But yeah, thank you for enduring that long shill session there. It's just been a long time since I've done it. I figured I had to get some of that out there. But if you made it this far, you're probably waiting for me to say thank you to you personally. Because, as it turns out, I do have amazing patrons who do support me. Thank you guys so much. And an extra special thank you to these fine folks here: Kyle Winter, Cyrus the Skeptic, Joseph Duncan Sonic 2 Blue, Josh Strider. I've not watched your latest video yet, man. I'm so sorry. I just remembered I gotta do that. Trey Nobles, Take Off My Damn Jacket, I Miss You Bro, we gotta hang out soon. Hatsworth, Tiny Jericho, Ginger Bob, Jack of All Spades, Tristan Trapp, Meekers, Bo, Quote, Resident Fanboy, Miles the Prower, Singer J199, Sam Webster, Fish Flop, Lucas Lipker, The Bad Pal, Jonathan Dobbs, Clover Chats. Good to have you back, Clover. Chad, I sent my evil clone to find some helium. SP is just going on a whole arc. It's wild. Cecil the Gallade, The Dark Neon, Stefan Plakanica, 3 Monic, Graham J. Hall, Lenny X, Wayne is Boss, Lederick. Okay, I feel like I'm going crazy. Can somebody help me out here? Am I going crazy? Because every time I get to Lederick, I feel like I've said the name a second time. Is it just because I say Lenny's name so soon before that? There's a train. There's a train going on. It's the middle of the night. I'm not going to stop. The train's just there. I'm sorry, everybody. David 20 covers and remember CG forever. The Lumberjack, Trash Baphomet, That Pyromane, Enerjack 5, Grayson Conager, Xerxes, The Renegade Jin, Ken K, Ven 101, Paxton Bisbee, Sindarin 7, Bnui, Stevie, for the love of spelling right. I can't say it properly. Twilord. Oh no, I've used up all the helium. What am I meant to do now? So is it like 2 people with like helium? Like are you guys like, why are we talking about helium? It is crazy, right, that we are running out of helium. Like, we are literally running out of helium. Smiling Friends wasn't kidding about that. That's a thing. We have a finite supply of helium. I'm tired. I'm not editing this part out. You're just what you guys are here for. If you're here at the end here, you're here to hear me just break down like a lunatic while I read names. Where was I? Eric Delgado, Crimson Rose, Municent, Roxas the Cat, Godzilla, Makuta of Salt, Gleam the Anomaly, Alexander Watson, Neil Gampa, Conan Kudo, the Lex, the most powerful ship in the 2 universes, Kaido Prower, Spearmint, Duo the Cat, Omega Man 21, Penn Adelaide, Daza S, the world's most unironic 8.5 tail Stan. That's so, like, is that a thing? Are you stand for whatever. One more Sonic robot. There's helium on the sun. Try looking. What is happening? SP, do you have 3 accounts? I know Adzingo's one of them, right? Are you guys just talking to each other are people just talking to each other through Patreon reads? I'm going crazy. MT Mecha, Gob, the RSI, OGreatGames.com, Seven Sol, the SX Sanjik Sailor, Ahoy Shipmates. Oh, and welcome, Salem Hollow. Met her at TMG. If you guys are in the area next year, you guys should absolutely go to next year's TMG. That was so much fun. And Salem, keep killing it on the art. It's incredible. I gotta remember to share that keychain at some point. It's really cool. Great art. And Siegfried Wilder. I'm assuming I'm saying that right. Again, folks, if you're sitting here because you want to hear your name called out and probably hear me be a lunatic. Thank you for that. But if I am saying any of your names incorrectly, please let me know. And if I have forgotten to take out a name, I know some folks have like asked me to take out out names because they don't like being associated with my terrible humor. I don't blame you. Thank you for the support. Whatever you need, please let me know, and I will do my best to sort that out. As it is, I mean, I'm just here for the last few folks that are still sitting here at the end of the video. If you are still sitting here, another thing I have been considering, as much fun as it is to read out these names, obviously these videos get a little bit long-winded, so I am very heavily considering changing things up in the Patreon. I mean, I don't do enough voting. There's a whole tier for voting, and we don't really even do voting. And like, if you're gonna be spending extra money, you should get something out of that. So yeah, for the $5 tier, I might stop doing name reads at the end here. So I would actually like to hear from you guys, and you'll see a post on Patreon. If that's something you still like, and that's what you're spending the money on, please let me know. If you'd like to see it change up, or you don't really care if I read at the end or not, let me know. But yeah, I'll have more discussions on that in the Patreon. Thank you guys again so much for hanging out, and I will catch you next time. Toot toot, Sonic Warriors.